You won't believe what happened that morning on the Today Show. The air felt different, heavier than usual. The usual bright energy was gone, replaced by a strange silence that made everyone stop and wonder. The lights were warm, the cameras ready, but something was clearly wrong. In the middle of it all stood Kale Jones. She wasn't smiling like she usually did. Instead, she held a small, creased piece of paper, her fingers trembling slightly. The sparkle in her eyes, the one everyone loved, had faded into something softer, more serious. She took a deep breath and looked straight into the camera. That day, Kale didn't speak as a host or reporter. She spoke as a woman, a wife, and now a widow. Her voice shook a little at first, but she kept going. She shared something personal, something she never thought she would have to say on live television. The room was silent, but her words echoed loudly. Everyone watching knew this was not just another story. It was something raw and real. Chael was no longer just the cheerful morning show host. She became a symbol of pain and strength, ready to share a deeply private story that had been hidden for over a year. Before Chael became famous on TV, before the bright lights and early mornings, she was just a college student at Northwestern University. It was there, in a crowded hallway, that she first met Yuchi. He was quiet and calm, the kind of person who didn't say much but made you feel safe just by being near. Chael was full of energy and dreams, always curious about the world. Their connection didn't happen suddenly, not like a love at first sight story. Instead, it was something slower, something deeper, a quiet friendship that grew into love. They bonded over family stories, their shared culture, and a desire to build something meaningful in their lives. Chael admired Yuchi's calm nature, how he made her feel steady when everything around her seemed fast and chaotic. Yuchi admired her fire, how her smile could light up a room and make strangers feel like friends. They didn't just fall in love, they built it carefully, day by day. In 2007, surrounded by family and friends, they got married. It was a simple ceremony, but full of love and promises. Yuchi promised to support Chael's dreams, and he kept that promise every day. While Chael worked hard to climb the ladder in journalism, Yuchi built his career quietly in tech consulting. He never wanted the spotlight. Instead, he cheered her on from the sidelines, making sure their home was a peaceful place to return to after long, busy days. Their family grew with the arrival of their children, first Cayenne, then the twins Clara Ara and Uchi Jr. Life was fast and full, but it was wrapped in love. Mornings were hectic with packed lunches and school runs. Evenings were busy with homework and bedtime stories. But the love between Chael and Yuchi showed in small, quiet moments, like the coffee he brewed before she woke up, or the notes he tucked into her suitcase before her trips. Yuchi was her rock, steady, loving, and loyal. And that's what made the next part so unbelievably hard. At first, no one noticed the changes. Yuchi seemed tired, but he said it was just work stress. Then came the shortness of breath, the chest discomfort. One night, while watching a movie after putting the kids to bed, he clutched his side in pain. That was when Chael knew something was seriously wrong. They went to the doctor, thinking it would be a routine checkup, but what they heard changed everything. It was cancer, aggressive and already advanced. The world spun around Chael as Yuchi tried to steady her hand, even while his own world was falling apart. After hearing the devastating diagnosis, Chael and Yuchi's lives changed in ways they never expected. The days that followed became a blur of hospital visits, blood tests, and scans. Every appointment brought new worries, but also moments of hope. At first, the doctors talked about treatment plans that might work, giving them a reason to believe they could fight this together. Yuchi faced each day with courage and grace. He never complained or showed fear, even when the pain grew stronger. Instead, he tried to lighten the mood with jokes, comforting the nurses and reassuring Chael when she broke down late at night. Chael woke up every morning before dawn, brewed a cup of coffee, and put on a brave face to go to work. After her busy days at the studio, she returned home to become a full-time caregiver for Yuchi. Their life became a delicate balance of normal routines and hospital schedules. There were small victories that gave them hope: a round of chemotherapy that seemed to shrink the tumors, a scan that showed slight improvement. These moments felt like lifelines, keeping them afloat in a storm that threatened to pull them under. They even planned a quiet weekend getaway, just the two of them, pretending for a little while that everything was okay. It was peaceful and beautiful, reminding them of the early days of their love story. But cancer doesn't play fair. One morning, Yuchi didn't get out of bed. He was weak and barely able to speak. Kale sat by his side, holding his hand, whispering that it was okay to rest. The hospital stay that followed was longer and quieter. The doctors' voices became softer. Visitors left with tears in their eyes. And then, one quiet evening, with the city lights shining outside the window, Yuchi took his last breath. Chael was there, holding him close, whispering how much she loved him. It was the hardest moment of her life, a moment she would carry forever, etched into her heart like a deep scar in a painful song. The house that once buzzed with laughter and life suddenly felt empty and still. His shoes were still by the door. His toothbrush sat untouched on the bathroom counter. The last coffee mug he used remained in the sink for weeks. Kale couldn't bring herself to touch any of it. In those early days after Yuchi's passing, time felt strange. The days stretched endlessly, but the nights came too fast. The silence in her home was the loudest sound she had ever heard. Her children asked questions she didn't have the strength to answer. Why did Daddy have to go? Where is he now? Will he ever come back? Kale turned to writing, pouring out her pain and confusion into a private journal. Some mornings she couldn't get out of bed. Other days, she forced herself to be strong for her children, making pancakes with a smile she didn't feel. She learned to grieve quietly when the world wasn't watching. Kale found comfort in her faith, even though it didn't always bring clear answers. It gave her a sense of peace, a hope that maybe Yuchi was still with her in some way. She talked to him when no one was around, sharing her small victories, asking for guidance, telling him about the kids. Friends dropped off meals, sent flowers, and offered to help, but none of it could fill the space Yuchi left behind. The house felt too big, the nights too long. Slowly, over time, the sharp sting of loss began to dull. The ache was still there, but it became easier to carry. But here is the shocking part. After months of grieving in silence, Chael made a decision that surprised many. She decided to return to work. It wasn't an easy choice. You won't believe how much she struggled with it. Every day she rehearsed what she might say, knowing cameras would capture more than just her words. They would capture her grief. The day she walked back into the NBC studio, the familiar hallways felt heavier than ever. Every face she passed held quiet sympathy. And this is where it gets interesting. When the camera started rolling, Kale didn't hide her emotions. She didn't pretend to be okay. Instead, she opened her heart to the world. She spoke softly but clearly. It's been the hardest season of my life. She shared how grief was something no one talked about enough, how it's okay to not be okay, and how important it is to talk about pain, even when it feels unbearable. Her honesty was raw and real. Viewers connected with her story because it wasn't polished or rehearsed. It came straight from a woman who had walked through fire and somehow found a way to keep going. Chael became more than a morning show host. She became a voice for widows, for grieving parents, and for anyone who has lost someone but still has to live their life. She shared her story through essays, interviews, and quiet reflections, breaking the silence around grief. What makes this story different? It's how Kale turned her deepest pain into purpose. She honored Yuchi's memory by living fully and fearlessly, refusing to let loss define her or her family. The craziest part is how her openness helped others. Viewers began writing to her, sharing their own stories of loss and survival. People found hope in her words and strength in her vulnerability. Kale's grief became a bridge, connecting strangers through shared pain and healing. Destiny took an unexpected turn, from a private sorrow to a public mission of hope and courage. But the story doesn't end there. Behind the scenes, Chael continued to struggle. Grief isn't a journey with a clear end, it's a constant companion, sometimes gentle, sometimes overwhelming. She still faced days when the weight of loss threatened to crush her. Yet, she found new ways to live, love, and grow. And through it all, the love she shared with Yuchi remained her guiding light, a quiet strength that helped her face each new day. What makes the story even more powerful is the way KO embraced life after loss. She didn't let grief stop her from dreaming or living. Instead, she carried Yuchi's memory with her in everything she did. She focused on her children, giving them love and strength, and she continued to pursue her career with passion and honesty. Kale became a symbol of resilience, showing the world that even after the darkest storms, there can be light. She spoke openly about the small, quiet moments that helped her heal. The morning coffee brewed just the way Yuchi liked it, the notes she still found tucked away, the conversations she had with him in her heart. These weren't grand gestures, but they made all the difference. Kale's journey reminded everyone that grief isn't about forgetting. It's about learning to live with love and loss together. The craziest part? Kale's story inspired many people to speak out about their own struggles with grief. She created a community where people could share their pain without fear or shame. Her courage gave others permission to feel, to cry, and to heal. She showed that it's okay to ask for help and that healing doesn't mean moving on, it means carrying love forward. Destiny took an unexpected turn for Chael, not just as a TV host, but as a beacon of hope for so many. Her story wasn't just about losing Yuchi, it was about finding strength in the broken places, about the beauty of human resilience, and about how love can survive even in the hardest times. This is how she turned her private pain into a public mission, and that's what made her story unforgettable. Chael Jones became more than a name on a screen. She became a voice for those who couldn't speak, a light for those lost in darkness, and a reminder that even after goodbye, life goes on, and it can be beautiful. This is where the story ends, but Kale's journey of healing and hope continues, touching hearts everywhere.